Converse. We celebrate His Excellency the Governor Garissa County. Makofi yake tafadhali. Karibu sana Mheshimiwa. Thank you so much for coming. Karibu sana Your Excellency. We celebrate you. Thank you for the honor. Asante sana. Welcome, 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 welcome. I pray that we remain standing for the Kenya National Anthem. Don't worry, technical team. Kenya National Anthem.
tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
I'd kindly request that we remain standing. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to be here, to be alive, and this conference is like no other, because we want to make it count for generations to come, 50 years, 100 years from now, long after we are gone. And it is with deep sadness that we bring you the news of the death of one of our delegates, Bwana Fabian Wambile from Marsabit County. Those from Marsabit County, if you're here, I'd kindly request that you come in front. Marsabit County, if you're here. But if not, please come. Nuria, poleni sana. Habiba, poleni sana. We just want to stand, observe a moment of silence. He was here with us yesterday. And he has left us a mark to know that this is not just an event. This must be a turning point to celebrate who we are. So a moment of silence, please. Marsabit County, indeed we will not forget this engagement. Asanteni sana for your bravery. And so even as we sit, as we engage, let us know this is not an event. This must be a turning point to celebrate who we are, so that long after we are gone, another generation will stand tall and say, we are Kenyans, and we are proud to be Kenyan, because we are standing on the shoulders of great men and women. You may kindly take your seats. Thank you so much. We appreciate. And even as we continue on, we want to also celebrate his life in a way by celebrating our culture. And we have Turkana County. Turkana County, even as we sing, we celebrate all those who gave us an identity as Kenyan people, our indigenous knowledge. So, Turkana, muko tayari? Mercy, I can see you. Fantastic. Okay, technical team, are we ready? Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your presence. This is the Turkana County. Unforgettable presentation. Naomba tusimame. Tulisema Waafrika wa Kenya hatutizami wengine wakidance, sote tuna dance. Haya, tunaruka. Asante sana. Pamoja. Haya. Twende. Haya. Haya. Sote tusimame. Haya. We are celebrating our culture. Hata mwaweza kushikana mikono. It's togetherness. We the people of Kenya, proud of our ethnic, cultural and religious diversity and determined to live in peace. Larry from the Ma community. Asante sana. Bwana Shindo. Well done. Dr. Taracha. Bwana Ken. Asante sana, makofi yao tafadhali. Well done. Well done. Well done. Well done. Well done. Asante sana. Mwaweza kuketi. Thank you so much. Give me sound right there. We are ready, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to listen to our chief guest. He has been here, well represented. Now he is here in person. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome
He is the governor of Garissa County, serving his second term and a seasoned banker with extensive experience in finance and leadership. With a strong background in the banking sector, he brings strategic insight and commitment to advancing development and public service. Please welcome His Excellency Nadhif Jama Adam.
Makofi yake tafadhali, karibu sana. We'll go up the stage. Thank you so much. Asante, Your Excellency.
Good morning. Let me first of all take this opportunity to say that I'm extremely honored to be part of this very important gathering today on matters culture and indigenous knowledge. Actually, I had very serious commitments in Nairobi, and even including traveling out of Nairobi this morning, but I said I can't miss out on this very important conference, which I believe actually is probably the most important conference we are having in this country. I'm also equally honored and happy that I'm the only governor so far out of 47 governors who have come for this conference. And therefore, I can comfortably say that representing the COG, or the Council of Governors, in this very important gathering means a lot to me. I remember also equally, I was the only governor who was in a conference in Naivasha a few months back when the discussion relating to this conference was being held. Let me also take the opportunity to thank and appreciate the organizers of this very important conference, particularly the National Museums of Kenya, and also the key individuals in that, of course, organization, including my friend Dr. Taracha, and the board members who I know are all committed. To many, issues to do with culture and indigenous knowledge may not mean a lot to them, especially in a fast-moving country like ours, where futuristic issues such as technology and modernization is taking a lot of toll on matters culture and indigenous knowledge. But let me tell you something, probably I have to say from the bottom of my heart. I've worked outside this country for many years. And for those of us who are in the diaspora, when we see Kenya out there, when we see cultural dancers from Kenya on the screens, our hearts cry. Our hearts cry for a nation that we believe is keeping its cultures. A nation that should keep its cultures, if not for anything else. One, for identity, and number two, for the future generations. Not keeping up with your cultures or maintaining them or retaining them is indeed something unfortunate, for lack of a better word. Yeah. And therefore, for those of us who I can say the people who will value a lot these kind of activities will be those in the diaspora, because we miss our country. And the only way you can link up with your country and be proud of your country, beyond, of course, the other developments, is the cultural quality of your country. What I want to say is that a nation can only be known through identity. And if there is one thing that Kenya can say its identity should be, it is culture and indigenous knowledge. And that's why I've been a friend, a key participant, a key stakeholder in this journey of indigenous knowledge from the day it was brought to us in Garissa County. I took it up as a personal initiative, a personal interest deep in my heart, and we have since traveled the journey with the organizers, i.e. the National Museums of Kenya. And I want to commit today in this conference that Garissa County will continue playing any important role with regard to this matter. Particularly so also because we in Garissa County pride ourselves to be a county also very well enriched matters indigenous knowledge and culture. Last year, with the presence of many dignitaries, including the Minister for Culture, who was here yesterday, Madam Cheptumo and her PS, and many other invited guests, we held in Garissa our inaugural cultural festival, which was one of in its own class, very well appreciated, and we intend to continue also doing the same in the years to come. We brought together more than 30 indigenous communities who live in Garissa County and who call Garissa County home, including some of the most, should I say, rarest communities that can be found in Kenya. I was just talking to this morning to Dr. Taracha and telling him that we have the equivalent of the Ogiek community in Garissa County, but not many Kenyans will know that. In Garissa County, deep in the forests of the Boni Forest, deep in the Boni Forest, we have a community known as the Aware community. Very indigenous, probably as indigenous, if not more indigenous, than the Ogiek community in the Mau. And they are still hunters and gatherers with serious traditions and a lot of traditional knowledge for that matter. We have such communities, and therefore this kind of activities enables us and gives us the opportunity to celebrate those kind of people, their cultures, and the knowledge that they have for us and for generations to come. That's why this morning I came to share these few remarks with you and with this conference to say that this initiative, as I said earlier, probably is the most important activity that we can do as a country, because we are discussing matters maintaining and retaining and keeping our cultures alive. We are discussing how we may entrench in this indigenous knowledge for ourselves and for generations to come. This forum and this activity, you can only imagine if we do not have this kind of activity which entrenches indigenous knowledge, then what happens to our Gen Zs and to the younger generations to come in the future? What will they know about the kind of products today we are talking about and we are presenting here? And that's why we as governors, as leaders in this country, definitely must support this kind of projects, this kind of programs, which basically leave everlasting touch or mark on the future of this country. And mine, therefore, is to once again congratulate the organizers of this conference for a job well done. Daktari Taracha and the team, the board, and everybody who has been part of this. You know that we started this together. We will be together. I'll personally be, I'm fully motivated to stay with you on this journey so that we can indeed leave behind a mark in terms of our culture and documenting our knowledge, our assets and indigenous knowledge. I mentioned this morning also that if only each county of the 47 counties was to take up on one indigenous knowledge aspect, then we have each 47 different major, should I say, indigenous knowledge, a cultural activity, kept and documented for the future. Of course, in addition to also that one becoming, a commercialized activity. So this all leads to the fact that we have a rich country with a rich history, with a rich culture, with diversified culture, with diversified assets and indigenous knowledge, and we need to maintain and keep that. And this program is indeed the one that we as a country need. And I have no doubt this journey will go very far because of the value proposition of the same. So without saying a lot, I know how much this means to all of us. Let's be on this journey. Let's keep it alive. Let's keep this fire of indigenous knowledge and culture burning for generations to come so that we have an identity of culture and indigenous knowledge as a country, and an identity which we are known for and which we will remain known for when the nations of the world talk together. Let them say Kenya is known for culture, for indigenous knowledge, and for indigenous assets that are unique to that country as part of the world. With those many remarks, let me say that it's an honor once again for me to be here on behalf not only of my county, but also on behalf of the entire COG and to my colleagues who could not make to come, but I represent them to confirm to you that we are together in this journey as leaders and as county managers. We are together and we will give all kind of support to this kind of activity. I want to commit to Dr. Taracha and the team that this is just the beginning. We'll have many more of this coming up. Let's also have a post-conference session to discuss more on these issues and how we may enrich any of the issues that require our further attention. And that's really what I want to say this morning, as I appreciate each one of you for coming to be part of this very, very important forum. Finally, of course, I wish to convey my sincere condolences to our brothers and sisters for Marsabit, for our departed brother. Of course, my condolences also, I pass them on to my colleague, Governor Muhammad Ali of Marsabit, and to the entire people of Marsabit, and of course to all of us as a nation for that departed soul who was here on a very, very important mission. Asanteni sana, and I wish this conference all the best. Thank you very much.
Wow, tusimame tafadhali as we celebrate His Excellency the Governor, Garissa County, the first governor to attend this inaugural conference, challenging us that that fire must keep on burning for generations. We celebrate you. Asante sana, mwaweza kuketi chini. Now, Your Excellency, there was a comment from one of the delegates, Laura, if she's still here. Laura said we need to make our cultural products cool, so that we can capture the minds and hearts of young people, Gen Zs. Well, I'm delighted to note that we have Mr. Shindo. Mr. Shindo Kotari. Mr. Shindo, unataka kuconfirm ya kwamba young people pia wako mbele pale katika mambo ya utamaduni, sio? Tuzungumzie dakika 3. Haya.
Habari zenu nyote. Mheshimiwa Nadhif, Jama, Dr. Tarache, mawaziri yote mlioko hapa wa county, na waheshimiwa nyote pamoja na wadau wote mliofika mahala hapa. Kwa majina ninaitwa Tom Shindo Ngonyo. Mimi ni Youth Champion President wa Kilifi County. Ninashukuru ni kwa ajili ya nafasi hii ya kipekee. Niko na performance ambayo naenda kuifanya mahali hapa, lakini kabla ile performance niko na jambo moja ambalo nataka niliseme ambalo ni la manufaa kwetu sisi sote. Kwanza ningeshukuru sana NMK kupitia kwa Dr. Taracha kwa ajili ya mradi huu na kilele hiki ama umbali huu, maana si kilele hiki. Safari inaendelea hii. Kwa umbali huu ninashukuru, maana tumepata kuamsha maarifa yetu, tunaendelea mbele, tunaendelea vizuri. Zaidi shukrani kwa ajili ya serikali ya kitaifa kwa ajili ya kutusaidia na kusimama nasi katika huu mradi huu, pamoja na serikali zile gatuzi. Ningependa zaidi kumshukuru the chairman of governors Mr. Nadhif, ni kwa ajili ya kujitolea katika huu mradi. Aliupenda na moyo, aliuelewa, na mtu anapopenda kitu hicho ni kibali, ni lazima kitasonga, maana atakifanya kadri ya moyo wake. Tulikuwa naye Naivasha, tuko naye hapa, na ni mkweli, maana ndiye gavana peke yake ambaye amefika hapa. Nataka niseme ya kwamba kitu kufanikiwa ni lazima umekipenda. Na nataka niseme ya kwamba serikali kuu haikuwa ina haja ya kupeleka hivi vyombo kwa counties vikatulie ama vikoe kwamba ni historia imekuja, lakini ni vyombo vikatumike ili kumuinua kijana, kumuinua mwananchi wa pale mashinani na kuinua uchumi wa nchi. Na sinikiza serikali kuu na serikali gatuzi, wacha tuungane, serikali gatuzi zote zisimame imara. Na chairman of governors, naomba unapoenda kule kwa mikutano yenu wahimize magavana wote ya kwamba logo zenu, kila mtu amejivunia utamaduni wake, lakini sikujivunia tu kwamba sisi ni wafugaji ngamia, kwamba sisi tuko na minazi, kama sisi tuko na rasilimali tofauti, lakini tunazifanyia nini? Huo ndio utajiri wetu. Tutakapouzingatia na kushikilia hivi, utatupeleka kule mbele, tutaacha kukuwa watumwa na tutainuka. Na ujumbe huo nimeulinganisha na ile performance yetu ya kwamba ile performance ambayo nataka kuifanya hapa ya kwamba kuna wimbo ambao naenda kufanya ya kwamba wanalalamika ya kwamba hatuendelei, wengine wanaendelea lakini hatuendelei. Ni kwa nini? Tatizo ni nyota? Hapana. Dr. Taracha ametuonyesha nyota ndio ile, tuifate. Maana huko ndio kuna fibiririka maziwa na asali. Tuungane. Lengine la mwisho kabla nianze performance yangu, niko na presidents wenzangu, ningeomba msimame mahali mko tu, mnyoshe mikono wamuone presidents. Deputy presidents, kuna young champions, simameni, msikae, simameni. Waheshimiwa mlioko hapa, wale wote walioko pale waliwezeshwa na serikali kuu kupitia kwa NMK kimaarifa ya kunakili na kuhifadhi maarifa haya. Naomba isikuwe ni zoezi lilikufanyika likapita. Hawa vijana walihamasishwa vizuri na wanaendelea kule kupitia haya mafundisho. Ninaomba serikali gatuzi zikaweze kufund vijana hawa wakaweze kuendelea hili zoezi na wakaweze kupata kipato, maanake hata mnapoenda kule nyanjani kutafuta kura, ajira kwa vijana ndo msemo wa kwanza. Na ninaomba hata President William Ruto atusikie na atushike mkono kama vijana katika huu mradi. Hawa vijana hawa isibaki tu kwamba walikuwa wakifanya haya maarifa na imeisha, awashike mkono. Mimi ningependa niendelee ile performance ni kwamba tumechoka kukua watumwa, tunataka tunalolifanya lipate kibali. Tatizo sio nyota. Ni sawa sawa? Wanasema tatizo ni nyota. Sasa nyota tumeonyeshwa. Wacha tuanze performance yetu.
Haya. Makofi yake tafadhali. Performance mko tayari kabisa? Asante sana technical team. And just to let you know, immediately after this, we will have a business community engagement. This is where now we ask the tough questions. We have value. Are you willing to put in money? And will there be a return on investment? It's a very important conversation ambayo tutakuwa nayo baada ya presentation hii. So tafadhali, if you have any questions in regards to how can we turn this particular value into something that can be monetized, please, you want to keep it locked here. In the meantime, Shindo, tuko tayari? Tuko tayari kabisa? Haya, tuko tayari. Asante sana.
Wakiendelea wale wenzangu kutoka Kilifi, naona pale Washebe Mbaga, naona mzee Matela mwenyewe, tufike hapa mbele tufanye performance yetu. Technical team please. Tuko tayari, achilia. Dancing style ni hapa tu.
Wewe.
Toa hiyo. Technical team nilikuwa nimewapatia vizuri sana.
Na pia mkumbuke tonight 6 p.m. hapa tulipo tutapatana katika cultural night. Na hata Narok naona wanaambia wako tayari na wimbo wao, lakini pia 6 p.m. cultural night tutakuwa.
Yes, tayari. Yes, tuko sawa. Unaweza cheza na sisi.
Tusimame kidogo. Ukiweza kusimama. Mbaga mwenyewe.
Newa ni akuli. Newa ni akuli. Kuluma biwe. Kuluma biwe.
Hapo.
Gubu.
Bas.
Asante sana.
Asante, makofi tafadhali. Bwana Mbaga, Bwana Shindo, asanteni sana. Shukran. Na pia nasikia pia kule gavana alipotoka pia kuna mambo pia. Lulu yuko wapi? Lulu, karibu sana. Lulu ana presentation yake kutoka Garissa. Lulu yuko wapi? Lulu. Haya basi, wamejitayarisha pale technical team. Tuko tayari kabisa. Asante sana. Mkumbuke hapa ni kionjo tu, kwa sababu mambo yote yatafanyika saa 12 hapa jioni. 6 p.m. Get ready to dance, to sing, to engage. And remember also before 6 p.m. where we will be serving our lunch. At 4 to 6 p.m. we will have what we are calling the County Town Hall engagement session. The County Town Hall engagement session will be happening between 4 to 6 p.m. this evening. So get ready with your questions, because we want to now move from just talk to action. Very important. kutoka Garissa tuko tayari kabisa, technical team wamesaidika. Asante sana. Bas, nawaona sasa wanakuja. Nauliza, wangapi washafika Garissa hapa? Wangapi mmefika Garissa? 1, 2, 3. Naona Daktari Ahmed. Hebu mwingine hapa. Naona Bwana Patrick. Aha, Mwalimu Nyambane yuko pale. Bas, okay. Upande huu wangapi mmefika? Mbele hapa. Dr. Taracha shafika pale. Wacha niulize swali lingine. Wangapi hawajafika Garissa? Tutupeleke. Haya, gavana. Kuna nafasi kubwa. Tutakuja pale Krismasi, kila kitu tuwe pale Garissa. Ama vipi bana? Asante. Makofi tafadhali. Lulu, karibu sana kutoka Garissa.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hamjambo wananchi wenzangu?
Hatujambo.
Kwa majina mimi naitwa Luli kutoka Garissa County. Nina furaha kubwa manake naona mbele yangu kuna gavana wangu wa Garissa. Yeye ndo tuko na yeye kila wakati. Yaani mimi najiuliza, magavana wengine hawataki mambo ya utamaduni ama mko aje? Nisi wa Somali tu ndo tunataka utamaduni. Na washukuru wenzangu tulikuwa na wao, Dr. Taraja na timu wao. Tunawashukuru chenye tumefika na mahali mumetutoa. Niko na wimbo moja ambaye ni ya kusifu gavana wangu. Nataka ni asikie kidogo na nyinyi mburudike. Karibuni. DJ. Na mimi ndo mama wa Garissa Cultural. Mimi ndo chair wa Garissa. Yeah. Na hii ni live. Si ati.
Hapa huwezi keti chini. Hauwezi keti chini. Lazima tusimame.
Watu wasimame mburudike.
Tusimame.
Lama ara. Nisida daligu tahay na wila wanago kafogada nahliyo waxay diintu neceb tahay. Kafogada nahliyo xumaaniyo waxay diintu neceb tahay nadiifo. Naruriyo waxaa tahay nimcadu Rabbina bumaneste nolaha dhammaanba nadiifo kusugaye Naruriyo waxaa tahay nimcadu Rabbina bumaneste nolaha dhammaanba nadiifo kusugaye nasiibkaagu kuma gabo nadiifo. Soo dhawow madaxweyne nacabkuma haleelo nasiibkaagu kuma gabo nadiifo.
Wewe
Shuba, 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 shuba.
Wow, wimbo unasema gavana, asante kwa kuja, anapenda watoto, anapenda kina mama na anapenda development. Makofi tafadhali. Well done. Well done, well done, well done, well done. Asante sana. Wow, thank you so much, Your Excellency. Thank you so much. And we still have more performances, of course, at 6 p.m. tonight, cultural night. Get ready, get ready, get ready. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to now move on to another very key, critical engagement. There is something that Dr. Taraja has been reiterating over and over. I remember him making mention of that statement the first day and even yesterday. Protection for posterity and promotion for prosperity. We want to really focus on that in a big way, so get ready. We're saying we've got to be honest. Kenya's indigenous knowledge is not lacking value. It is lacking buyers, structure, and serious business attention. We're documenting it. We've talked about it. We've even put numbers to it. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The uncomfortable truth is, if indigenous knowledge was oil, was telecoms, was fintechs, what would have happened? We would have already built billion-shilling industries around it. So the real question is not whether indigenous knowledge has value. No. The question is, why hasn't the business community moved fast enough to capture it? So immediately after this particular conference, we want to make sure that this particular sector becomes like the oil, like the telecoms, like the fintechs. And to guide us through a very critical engagement, ladies and gentlemen, we want to focus on artificial intelligence, intellectual property, and indigenous knowledge, building profitable ventures fit for the global market. And to guide us through that discussion, we'll start with a key presentation from the Director, Center for Intellectual Property and Information Technology Law, Strathmore Business School. A big round of applause for Dr. Melissa Omino. Karibu sana, ready to learn. Makofi yake tafadhali nyingine. Asante sana. Welcome.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me. Wow. I'm having so much fun. I'm asking myself, am I really at a conference? It's really wonderful to have opened up with dancing, but also with a moment of silence, remembering one of the delegates who was here with us today. Your Excellency, Governor Adam, the leadership of the National Museums of Kenya, the Natural Products Industry Program, Dr. Taraja, the Kenya Copyright Board, Director Training and Research, Ms. Sharon Wata, fellow panelists, colleagues in the business community, indigenous knowledge holders, all protocols observed. Good morning. I want to begin with a sentence that is also the title of a paper I co-authored in 2023. The sentence is this: just because you can doesn't mean you should. That paper asked a specific question about artificial intelligence and indigenous knowledge in Kenya. The question was whether we should use AI to curate and to preserve indigenous knowledge simply because the technology makes it possible. The answer we arrived at was this, and this will let you know that I'm actually a lawyer by profession. It depends. It depends on who is asking. It depends on what is being protected. It depends on who benefits. It depends on whether the knowledge holders have said yes and a full understanding of what they are saying yes to. So hold that sentence in your mind for the next few moments as I deliver this speech. We have been here this week to talk about turning indigenous knowledge into investment, into ventures, into enterprises for the global market. I think that framing is right. I also think it is incomplete. My job this morning is to complete it. The topic I've been given brings three things together: artificial intelligence, intellectual property, and indigenous knowledge. Each has its own gravitational pull. Or AI pulls towards scale and speed. Intellectual property pulls towards enclosure and exclusivity. Indigenous knowledge pulls towards community, continuity, and context. The global market pulls towards uniformity. Anyone who has tried to bring a traditional product to an international buyer knows what I mean. The first question is never about provenance. It's about price, volume, certification, and consistency. So when you put AI, IP, and IK or TK, whatever you prefer, in the same sentence, you create a tension between systems designed to move knowledge at machine speed and scale, and systems of knowledge that were designed to be moved at the speed of relationships, ceremony, inheritance, and trust. The question in front of us is not whether to engage with this tension. We are already engaged. The Inky Bank was commissioned here yesterday. The AI models that are being trained today, whether in Nairobi, in San Francisco, or in Beijing, are already ingesting African languages, African cultural expressions, African biodiversity data. The question is whether we build our ventures on the right side of that tension so as not to be on the wrong side of it. My thesis is simple. A venture that takes indigenous knowledge to the global market is fit for the market only if it is also fit for the community, because the community holds that knowledge in custody. Fit for the global market and fit for the community are not two separate tests. In the long run, they are the same test. A venture that extracts without consent, that uses AI to strip context from knowledge, that relies on IP frameworks designed to enclose what was never meant to be enclosed, that venture will not survive contact with a global market that is increasingly asking hard questions about provenance, dignity, and benefit. So, I have three parts: the AI question, the IP question, and the profitable ventures question. And I will close with a call to action. So my first question, artificial intelligence today runs on data. The quality and the variety of the data determine what the model can do. For a long time, the large models were trained overwhelmingly on English language content from the open internet. That is changing because the value for the next generation of models depends on breadth of language, breadth of culture, and the breadth of domain knowledge. Which means African languages, African cultural expressions, African medicinal knowledge, African agricultural knowledge now sit at the frontier of AI development. Our traditional foods, our performing arts, our oral literatures, our herbal pharmacogens, these are no longer curiosities. From a commercial AI perspective, they are strategic inputs. This is the part where I am expected as a keynote speaker at an investment conference to celebrate. And there is something to celebrate. For decades, indigenous knowledge was treated as backward, as something to be replaced. Now, it is being recognized as the frontier of emerging technology. The recognition is real and it is overdue. But I want to name what this recognition looks like in practice when it is not accompanied by protection. What it looks like is scraping. What it looks like is data sets assembled by people who never asked. What it looks like is a voice model trained on the speech of a Doluo grandmother, deployed as a product with no mechanism by which that grandmother or her family or her community will ever know consent or benefit. The argument in the 2023 paper I mentioned is not that AI and indigenous knowledge do not belong together. The argument is that the question of whether to use AI on indigenous knowledge is a governance question first, and a technical question second. Information are stripped from a medicinal plant use and ingested by a model. What comes out on the other side is a hallucination at best and a dangerous instruction at worst. So when an investor tells me they want to use AI to unlock the value of indigenous knowledge, my response is not a no. My response is tell me how you're going to carry the consent with the data. How are you going to layer the consent and distinguish curation from preservation? If you cannot answer these three questions, you do not yet have a venture, you have a risk. Now, let's move to the IP question. Intellectual property law, as we practice it today, is built for a specific purpose. It grants a time-limited monopoly to an identifiable creator in exchange for disclosure. The creator is typically one person or one company. The disclosure is typically written. The value is extracted during the monopoly period, and then the work enters the public domain. That is the function of intellectual property. Indigenous knowledge does not fit any of those assumptions. The creator is typically a community across generations. The transmission is typically oral and performed. The knowledge is often not meant to be in the public domain in the Western sense, either during a monopoly period or after it. Some of it is sacred. Some of it is restricted to specific persons. All of it is held in trust for the interest of the community. Kenya has in fact recognized this mismatch in law for nearly a decade. The Protection of Traditional Knowledge and Cultural Expressions Act, number 33 of 2016, gave effect to Articles 11, 40, and 69 of the Constitution of Kenya. Article 11 recognizes culture as the foundation of the nation. Article 40 protects property, including intellectual property. And Article 69, 1C, obliges the state to protect and enhance intellectual property in and indigenous knowledge of biodiversity and the genetic resources of communities. When we read these articles together, the position is clear. Indigenous knowledge in Kenya is not informal. It is not pre-legal. It is constitutionally recognized property. And the Act of 2016 translates that constitutional recognition into an operating framework. Protection from misuse and misappropriation, a repository at the Kenya Copyright Board, a requirement that any access resets on prior informed consent, and a role for both traditional or county governments and national governments in stewardship. I want to draw your attention to two sections in particular because they speak directly to the question of how indigenous knowledge becomes valuable and to whom. Section 24 establishes the principle of equitable benefit sharing. It provides that the protection of owners and holders of traditional knowledge or cultural expressions includes the right to fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from the commercial or industrial use of their knowledge, determined by mutual agreement between the parties. It goes further. Benefits need not be monetary. They may include contributions to community development, responses to the material needs and cultural preferences expressed by the communities themselves. This matters because benefit sharing in Kenyan law is not a discretionary gesture of corporate social responsibility. It is a statutory right attached to the asset. Section 32 provides the vehicle through which that right is operationalized. The authorized user agreement. The Act is clear that where someone wants to use traditional knowledge or cultural expressions outside the traditional context, particularly for commercial or industrial purposes, they must enter into a written authorized user agreement with the holders. It then sets out in Section 34 what that agreement must contain. It must address the sharing of financial and other benefits, compensation, fees, royalties or other payments, the duration and exclusivity of use, disclosure requirements, access arrangements for the owners, any sharing of intellectual property rights arising from the use, confidentiality for secret knowledge, and respect for the moral rights of the traditional owners. Taken together, these three sections tell us something important about the economic nature of indigenous knowledge in Kenya. It is not a free resource. It is not a commons in the public domain. It is a protected category of property, the use of which is conditional on a written agreement that by law must include fair benefit sharing. The valuation of an indigenous knowledge asset for investment purposes must begin from the starting point. What has been missing since 2016 is the infrastructure to operationalize the Act. The statute required a repository. It required protocols for access. It required mechanisms for benefit sharing. The commissioning of the Indigenous Knowledge Innovation Bank here closes the gap between the law and the law in practice, a gap that has left communities legally protected but commercially unserved for nearly a decade. This is a significant moment. The Inky Bank is necessary. It is not sufficient, A repository, even a well-governed one, answers the question of what exists. It does not, on its own, answer what exists moves into the hands of an investor, a researcher, or an AI developer on terms that actually satisfy its provisions. That movement is governed by licenses, by contracts, by access protocols. If the licenses and contracts are not written with indigenous knowledge in mind, all the protection built at the repository level can be lost at the transaction level. Now, there are two practical pieces of tooling that colleagues and I have been building to sit in that gap. The first is a licensing framework called Noodle, which is designed for African language datasets because the conventional open data licenses and, for example, the Creative Commons and its equivalents do not speak to the concerns of communities whose languages and knowledge are being licensed. They are built for a different kind of creator and the different assumptions of what a public domain is. The second is the governance framework for the Kenya language corpus, which I developed together with Mr. Mark Irura, Dr. Lilian Wanzare, Lois Mbowe, and Leo Mutuku, where Noodle governs the terms on which data travels out of community hands. The KLC framework governs how that data is brought together, stewarded, and made available in the first place. It asks how a national language corpus can be assembled in a country with more than 40 languages. Who decides what goes in and what stays out? How communities retain a meaningful voice once their language becomes a part of a national resource, and what the obligations of downstream users are, whether they are researchers, startups, or foundational models trained aboard. Taken together, these two frameworks are two halves of the same conversation. One is a license, one is a governance model. Both sit comfortably inside the Section 22 authorized user agreement architecture. Both put Section 24 benefit sharing principle into operational form, and both start from the premise that neither the default open data posture nor the default IP posture gets indigenous knowledge right, and that something built for purpose is required. Now, my call to action. To the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, to the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce, to CAM and the industry, and other large enterprises in the room, your due diligence checks need to be updated. When you evaluate an indigenous knowledge-based venture, ask for the Inky Bank record, the Section 32 authorized user agreement, the Section 24 benefit sharing agreement, and the governance arrangement with the county. If those documents are not there, the venture is not investment ready. It does not matter how compelling the product is. The policymakers, or two policymakers, the system is not complete. Inky Bank is one pillar. We still need the licensing infrastructure, the benefit sharing administration, and standard contracts, enforcement capacity, judicial preparedness to handle cases that will come. These are the next pieces of work. To smaller cooperatives and the indigenous knowledge holders at the exhibitions, the tools commissioned at this conference are for you. Use them. Document. License on terms you have chosen. Negotiate with investors from the position of a custodian, not a supplicant. The law for the first time in this country is building infrastructure designed to put you at the center of the transaction, not at its margins. As I close, there is a version of this story in which Kenya leads the world on this question, not because our indigenous knowledge is more valuable than anyone else's, but because we have chosen to organize ourselves around it with more integrity than anyone else. That is the version that I am pitching here to you today. And that is the version I hope to see in the business conversations that happen after this conference. And I hope that we choose that version. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Melissa, if you don't mind, you could kindly take one of the seats. We just have a quick fire session. And questions are already coming in. Fantastic. I can see Bwana Charles. Asante sana. So let me just call the different panelists very quickly. We have Equity Bank, well represented. Karibu sana. Equity Bank, are you ready? Thank you so much. Makofi yake tafadhali. As it comes, we just have about 30 minutes for this session before lunch. Karibu sana. Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Do we have a representative? Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Karibu sana as well.
Okay.
Just a moment, Bwana Charles, before you ask your question, let me just call the panelists so that we are ready together. Do we have Dr. Joseph Mbai? Dr. Joseph Mbai, okay. Let's have Mr. Kanja Thuku, no? All right. And a representative from the Kenya Private Sector Alliance? Okay, so we'll have these two very prominent panelists. Thank you so much. And looks like Charles already has a question. I hope it's directed to Dr. Melissa. Go ahead, Bwana Charles, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Now, I want to ask a very, very important question to Dr. Omino. And first of all, I am so delighted about your well-researched and written paper, but I've not heard you addressing a very important issue related to heritage-based wealth, and particularly in regard to indigenous knowledge. I'm sure you are aware that this is related to the use of natural resources, where our local communities have been stewards since time immemorial. I have not heard you address that important area of biopiracy. We have very many people, scientists, corporations moving around local communities, trying to tell people about issues like carbon credits, moving around communities in villages in the guise of visiting individuals. But when you closely look at what they are doing, they are simply pirating our indigenous knowledge for their own benefits. What measures do you intend to take first to retrieve back what has been stolen from us, from our local communities? Two, what measures are you really taking to ensure that local communities do patent their rights to possession of this indigenous knowledge? Because talking is easy, but doing is the actual thing.
Dr. Melissa, over to you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bwana Charles.
I can answer that?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much for that question. And I like the framing of it. I'm not sure if I'm the person that should answer that, but I have answers to the question. I've talked about a very specific part of traditional knowledge, which are the cultural expressions captured under the Protection and Promotion of Traditional Knowledge and Cultural Assets Act of 2016. What you're talking about in terms of biopiracy, even on the African continent, is a very big problem. And there's an African model on genetic resources, right? And some of the biodiversity issues that you've mentioned. All these things do not happen in a vacuum. They're happening all at the same time. I know we've seen, for example, an attempt a few weeks ago of somebody trying to take some very specific ants out of the Kenyan jurisdiction. We've seen that, right? We haven't seen that? Okay, that's homework. But all these things are connected. The questions you've asked, what measures are there to retrieve back what has already been taken? And what measures are there to educate the community about these things? I think I fall squarely in the second question. In the first question, I really wish we had more government representation here to answer what it is that they have been doing. Have we even documented how much has been taken? I remember when I was an intellectual property student, we were told a story that we thought was a myth about a particular type of bacteria that's found in one of the lakes in the Rift Valley that can help to create stonewash jeans, and how that left. Is that a myth? Is that an example of what has been stolen and can be retrieved? But the story of the indigenous ants that were about to be taken out of the country, how they were captured at the airport, at customs, and retained, that is an example of what I think the government is doing. In terms of educating, I do the educating a lot. I've created a license with my colleagues. We are creating a governance framework, but it's difficult work to do as an academic on my own. I definitely think that we do need government support, and I think this is one of the first steps. Patenting is something completely different. I want us to really have a better understanding of indigenous knowledge, traditional knowledge, and how they are captured in what essentially is a Western intellectual property system. Patents might not be sufficient to cover what we're discussing because of items that I already mentioned, the community ownership. A patent envisions an individual owner. A patent envisions certain specific scientific elements that we would then have to prove as Africans, when we already know that what we have has value and has particular knowledge. I know the Kenya Copyright Board has done a lot of training with different communities around cultural assets. But I hope that the Kenya Industrial Property Institute would do training around what are the industrial property rights, which are also intellectual property rights, and how they intersect with traditional knowledge. I'm happy to offer my services to be part of that. But essentially, this conversation is happening. The biopiracy conversation is a more complicated conversation than one we are talking about cultural assets, which are probably covered by copyright. And what you're discussing is covered in a different particular act. For example, we have a Geographic Indications Act, or bill, that is being discussed and is due on the 27th of April, that has been championed by the government. We had an IP bill that covered many more items that has stalled somewhere. So all these are envisioned. It is the operationalization of these things that is missing. And that's why I'm very happy that this conference is happening.
Dr. Melissa, a big round of applause for her, please. Thank you so much. Now, there's something Dr. Melissa said. Indigenous knowledge used to be seen as backward, but now being seen as a frontier of emerging markets. Equity Bank, do you agree with that, even as you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Mwakazi. I think there was a mix-up which I might want to clear. My name is Joseph Mbai. I'm the General Manager in charge of health sector at Equity Bank Kenya Limited, representing the business community in terms of financing. And one of the questions that has been asked is it possible to monetize intellectual property or indigenous knowledge?
Right.
And can it be used as collateral? Because when banks lend money, they want to be sure whether that money is going to come back. It's payable. But why we haven't ventured into that is because we haven't seen a structured way that has been presented to us as financial institutions on, number one, things like ownership. When you say indigenous knowledge, who is the owner? Who can we charge? And then the other question would be, if it is owned by a community, maybe Daktari here can support in terms of the legal aspects.
Right.
How do you finance an asset that is community owned or cooperative owned? And the other thing would be, is there a license, or when you say it is ours,
Yes.
what document do you have to show it is ours? And I think for government and the policy developers that need to support this conference and what we are speaking, the topic of today,
Right.
those are questions that they must seek to answer. And then when you look at, I remember during
And just before you continue, Bwanambai,
Okay.
Bwana Nyambane, did you just hear what Bwanambai said? There is no structure. And we're here saying we have something of great wealth, but this is serious. So I really want you to respond to that. Bwanambai, we'll come back when you talk about, you remember something. Go ahead.
When we are here, we are restructuring ourselves towards what we intend to do from the disorientation that we are given. We are restructuring the form of intellectual property, local communities here. We want to look at ourselves from another mirror, not the mirror that Daktari has talked about of indigenous knowledge being backward, because we have rediscovered that it was so another level, only that we were disoriented kidogo too, which we are trying to catch up. The moment we restructure that, you will not catch us.
Asante sana. Makofi tafadhali for Mwalimu Nyambane. And Director Lagat, tafadhali pia, in case you need to chime in, please go ahead. But Bwanambai, we just want to you also help us, because we're here, you've heard from Mwalimu Nyambane, we are also restructuring. How can we support you to support us? But continue on with your trajectory of thought.
So as financial institutions, we develop products
Right.
based on needs of the people who want to consume those products. So we can actually develop those products together, and then we can guide on what is acceptable to finance as a bank. And I was giving an example during Kenyatta's time, the first Kenyatta, our first president, there used to be trophies, game trophies, where a person would come, cut the head of a buffalo or a lion, dry it, mold it on a dashboard, and sell it from Kenya. And they used to attract a lot of money. But that was banned because there was an issue of extinction of those animals. If you look at some of these people seated here, you can see they are wearing an African regalia that can be trademarked and sold abroad or globally and make money. So now, as an institution of financing, would be looking at what are the products that are being developed using IK, and they are protected, yeah? And then we can have tangible licenses where we can say, we know this particular garment is owned by the Maasai community. But then, if it is owned by the Maasai community or the Turkana community, how do you deal with the issue of ownership? Is it an individual person, or is it a community license, or what it is that we are talking about? And then the other thing, when it comes now to marketing, because you develop products,
Right.
then you go to market. so that you monetize. Because here what we are looking for is money. And that money doesn't have to come from us, it can come from everyone when we have demonstrated that we have made this product, this is the owner, and this is the price. And then we make noise about it. As a bank, I can tell you when we go that route, products can be financed.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Melissa, for your presentation. My name is Kiprop Lagat, State Department for Culture, the Arts and Heritage, where the Protection of Traditional Knowledge and Cultural Expressions Act 2016, revised 2018, is domiciled. Yes, it is indeed true that the Act has not been fully operationalized for lack of regulations. And I think that has been the major challenge that we have to enable or to facilitate owners of indigenous knowledge assets to benefit from their resources. However, this act was transferred to us, I think, almost 8 years ago. A task force was established in 2021. The task force finalized its work, I think, 2021-22. We have 3 sets of regulations, draft sets of regulations to operationalize that act. The first one is the Protection of Traditional Knowledge and Cultural Expressions Act, registration regulations. The second one is Protection of Traditional Knowledge and Cultural Expressions Act, licensing and access. Then the third set of regulations is access and utilization of TK associated with genetic resources. Some of the challenges you've alluded to will actually be addressed once these regulations are operationalized. We've had a lot of back and forth between the ministry, between the AG, and I think it's between the ministry and the AG and the other stakeholders. However, we've had recent discussions with the NPI on the need to urgently finalize those regulations. And if the coordinator was here, he would have confirmed that we're actually planning in the next, perhaps in the month of May, we will retreat with the Office of the AG to actually finalize those regulations. Amongst the issues that are addressed by the regulations regarding access and utilization of TK associated with genetic resources would be on prior informed consent protocols, the issues of mutually agreed terms. We are also talking of equitable and fair distribution of benefits, as well as benefit sharing agreements. So I am persuaded that once these regulations are fully endorsed and operationalized, a lot of the challenges that we are addressing at the moment will be things of the past, and our communities, owners of indigenous knowledge, intellectual assets, will fully benefit from their intellectual resources. Thank you.
Director Lagata, asante. Makofi yake tafadhali. We want to close because of time. Caroline, final comment?
Thank you very much for this presentation and engagement, quite informative. My name is Caroline Momanyi from Inua Kijana Africa, where we try to influence the younger generation to embrace culture. So my question to you, Dr. Hari, is on the due diligence. And I was looking at what is the role of the community governance systems? Because then when we are in these communities, there are individual community members that have taken it upon themselves due to interest, lineage, to be the custodians of this knowledge. But then as we are looking at the due diligence, is there a role for the community governance systems? Do we take that into cognizance? How do those systems then work alongside local administration? Because those are the people that we meet down there and they provide this consent, but then how viable is that? Thank you.
All right, just before you respond to the questions as we come to a close, and then also you give your final remarks, there's just a particular video of interest here by Sauti Sol, how they managed to use, artificial intelligence to take us back to the past. So if we can have that particular video play just to appreciate the place of artificial intelligence. Go ahead. Going back into the past, meet Tom Mboya, the late.
Barua toka jana Mogi na Kenyatta wanauliza kama Kenya kuko sawa, nikawajibu Kenya tuko na disaster, watoto wetu wanazidi kuzikana, na Tom Mboya ameshika tama, alituacha kama angali kijana. Je, angekuwa mambo yangekuwa sawa? Ndivyo walivyopanga Maulana, deni mulizoacha bado tunalipa, na tumekopa zingine China, tukajenga reli pia barabara, zilizobaki watu wakasanya. So tujiangalie, tuko pabaya leo kuliko jana, sikio la kufa halisikii dawa, tuko kwa Twitter tunajibizana, tujiangalie bade.
Asante sana, thank you so much. Just as we come to a close, Bwana Mbai, Dr. Melissa, you can respond to some of the questions that have been asked, but at the same time, please give us your final remarks. Let's start with you, Dr. Melissa, you ready? Go ahead.
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you. I really like that question about due diligence and the role of the community, right, in this process of ensuring that there's informed consent, and also ensuring, I think, that the whole community is speaking with one voice. I can give a very quick example of the work that we did in Maseno, with Maseno University, where they were collecting the Luo language data set called Bonam, and how they went about it with the community. It was a big question which has also been asked by my counterpart here on the panel about who would be responsible, because the Western concept of negotiating and transacting requires you to have one individual, not the whole community present. And the community had to sit down and decide who would represent them. And it was quite clear that the person was a representative of the community and is held accountable by community structures. So even as they are transacting or interacting with others about that particular Luo data set, they have to go back to the community and receive a communal answer to take back to whoever they're negotiating with. I think that is the best way I've seen it done. Otherwise, people who appoint themselves as representatives tend to have interests that might not align with the community. And I want to also point out that the community will not always agree at the onset. There were various questions around what would the benefit be for that particular data set. Some wanted to have the opportunity to go and study PhDs, but do PhDs serve the community or do they serve an individual? Some wanted a monetary benefit, but if it's a monetary benefit even of $20,000 US, if you divide by the whole community that built into that data set, people will go home with $5 US. It does not make sense. So the community had to sit down together and think of something that would be long-lasting, benefit the whole of the community, and which would plow back to the efforts of curation and preservation of the language. So there is work on the community level, and I'm really glad that organizations like yours exist. As I close, I really want to say that these things don't occur in a vacuum. I love that the regulations are ongoing, and I really want more public awareness on what's happening. Because, for example, there's the National Data Governance Policy that is currently being drafted. It wants to position data as a product of value, like an economic asset for the country. And a big question is around traditional knowledge data sets. And your regulations have a thing to say there. So I really hope that you will be able to interact once that policy is out for public comment. I really want to see comments from your section as well. And there are other ways of thinking about this. This is not a new avenue. If you think about communal land and how communal land is managed, if you think about the Land Control Board and how the Land Control Board functions, we are saying that we can do that also for other traditional and cultural assets. We should not box ourselves to think that it cannot work. It has worked before. So let's try and think about how we can translate some of these well-known things that banks have invested in, for example, land, communally owned land, they do that, and transfer those principles and frameworks to indigenous knowledge. Thank you.
Dr. Melissa, big round of applause for her. 2 minutes, Bonambai. Less than 2 minutes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to commend this gentleman here. I didn't get his name.
Director Lagat?
Yeah, for having taken time also to develop some acts towards this conversation. But sometimes I have a problem with government projects because of turnaround time.
Turnaround time.
And ownership, because some of these projects fail in government hands officers because of lack of facilitation, lack of ownership, and sometimes interests. So going forward, I would suggest that because now we are in it, all of us, we develop a committee that probably would sit and look at what are the challenges and how can they be dealt with, and then we can invoke some influence from top leadership to have a direction on who specifically or which ministry specifically should own this and run with it, so that there is no quarrel between anybody's office as who should run with this. Then the other thing I would want to say is that if you look at the people who are involved in this conversation, they took time and they came here. They will come out here with a document that will speak to the issues that have been highlighted. I liked Dr. Mino's presentation because it was giving some insights on what can we do in terms of the legal aspects. Combining with what he has said and combining with the vision of the county governments, I am double sure that we can deliver a document that is so clear, so forward-looking, and that can also help in the communities. Then I also want to ask the communities, when you are called upon for community participation, the one we say public, which is in our constitution, come out and give your views, so that people don't say it is Mbai and Omino who sat and agreed that thing should go that way. You know, so people need to come out and protect what is legally theirs.
Right.
Then finally, it is easy to do a big conference. It is easy to do a boardroom meeting. It is even very easy to do very good PowerPoint presentations. Remember, the time we are now is the time of AI, artificial intelligence.
Absolutely.
A person from America will come, pick content through AI, go develop it, protect it, and say it is theirs. But originally it was from us. So time is of essence here. Because AI is not going to spare us. It's not going to, it will not have luxury of us sitting and developing policies and all that. So the people who will be given this mandate, we really need to move with speed and develop before others take us by surprise. Thank you.
Bonambai, thank you so much. Dr. Melissa, big round of applause for them. We'd kindly request that you stand. We take that memorable photo. Asante sana. Give me some. Thank you so much. We are ready. It's 18 minutes to the top of the hour. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to close in a big way, so let's be here at exactly So remember, we get back here at exactly 2 p.m. to kick off the final session. Remember, indeed, immediately at 4 p.m. we'll be meeting at the lunch venue for the county town hall engagement session. Then at 6 p.m. we come back here again for the cultural night. Naomba tafadhali makofi yao tafadhali tunapomaliza. Asante sana. Thank you so much. Lunch is served, So please, let's go straight for lunch. Let's meet here at 2 p.m. to close. Ole Tinku, bado hatujasahau, tukija tutakwenda Narok. Nashukuru bana. Bwana Charles, thank you so much. Well done.